So anyways, the way this works
Mhm.
is we normally start by getting a little bit background about who you are and what you're doing right now. And
Sure.
then we cover the territory of how you got to where you are now. So sort of how did you come into this immersive industry? What was your path into it? And then we talk about where you're headed next and where you think the industry in general is headed. So why don't you
Okay.
just quickly give us a summary of who you are and what you do?
My name is Roman, and I play live music and immersive tech shows, which is a kind of an evolved idea from starting off playing music and touring in a band previously, and writing music for film. And then we released a couple of records, and we were able to try different things out. And the idea was to try and look at different things you could do with live music experiences, rather than just the normal playing a concert. People come, you play for this long, there's lights, there's some visuals, but about, basically the same format that has existed since like the 40s, let's say. So we started experimenting with, we did shows where we bring an orchestra into a cinema, where the video behind the projections would be a story that would be edited live, and really trying to kind of explore different things you could do with mixed media. And
when you were doing that, were you the creative force behind that execution, or were you partnering with other people? How did that manifest?
we were signed to a label, and we had a publisher, and so they were supporting us to try and use this as a way of promoting music that we were writing, but ultimately, it was a group of I was writing the music, but I kind of hesitate to say I was the creative force behind it, because the whole point of it is that when you go the thing I love about a band or any creative collaboration is that it's the sum of all these interesting people's thoughts and ideas, and then the thing you're witnessing on stage isn't just one guy's idea or one guy's vision. And so that's why we were drawn to mixed media, because then you have someone who's a filmmaker and someone who's a musician and someone who's a graphic designer and that's where interesting things happen, and that's where it becomes greater than the sum of its parts, if you like. So
Totally.
that brings us to like about 4 or 5 years ago, not long after the big Facebook acquisition and the kind of birth or the, I don't know what it would be. It's now thought of as the big revolution in VR and where it hit mass culture. But then as I've now been in the, for want of a better word, immersive tech industries or whatever you want to call it, for about 3 years, seriously, you start to meet people who have really done it, and people who were there from the very start. And just when you think, oh yeah, I think, didn't they try and mess with that in the 90s and didn't really work? And then you meet people who kind of worked in the original Sword of Damocles and stuff in the 70s and stuff for NASA and the military, and you realize this is like a long lineage of steps that then a Kickstarter campaign that suddenly means that we can all afford VR is almost like chapter 9 of this story.
Yeah, totally.
But anyway, so I then started realizing that it was kind of a response to the music industry, in that it's a very boring format to follow, and it's very strict, and you have to do certain things, and there's a release schedule, and it's an industry, actually. Music industry is an industry that's constantly feeling insecure, I think, about the tech industry and about the gaming industry, and insecure about the tech industry in that the music industry likes to think it's innovative, and that the next big thing is going to be, this guy's going to come up with this record, or they've got this content. But it was an industry that's completely disrupted by tech, and and you look at the sort of graphs of how many people are playing Grand Theft Auto versus how many people listen to the last Daft Punk record, or the last massive records like Drake or The Weeknd, and the numbers are astronomical. It's like a cultural phenomenon that is if you're if you look at how many records are sold, how many people play games, how many people are on their phones, that in a way the music industry is a very small cultural, like compared to how influential and important it used to be. Like I have to talk very carefully about this because I'm in the music. You know, we signed a record deal, and so I don't want to sound like I'm saying, yeah, music's irrelevant now, and tech is the new rock and roll. But in a lot of ways, it is. You know.
Yeah, and I mean, because people used to go and start a band, like in the 50s and 60s, that was the thing you did, is you'd go start a band, exactly. And now it's like you go start a company. Like that's kind of like the band equivalent.
I thought that's a really good point, and I think that it's also a bit of a taboo because you're meant to be, you know, that another thing the music industry sort of likes to think. And when I say the music industry, I just mean the general people that identify with it or work within it, is that it's kind of cool and it's edgy and it's interesting and it's and that the tech world originally, maybe 10, 15 years ago, before video games dominated everything and before we lived in like the world of Zuckerberg and Musk, it was a sort of a small thing and it was kind of complex and it was sort of, you know, a bit nerdy and such. And now, you know, the music industry is dwarfed by that. And so, and exactly like you said, that all my friends who were in the music industry, who started labels, who managed acts and stuff, they suddenly, the ones who wanted to do something interesting, they just left and they went into tech because that's where you are actually making interesting, exciting things happen.
It's where the heat is culturally right now. I was in the film industry for a long time, and I felt a similar thing. Yeah, it was like 2007, 2008. I just sort of got disillusioned, and I saw all this activity and heat and impact happening in the tech world. But then I did tech for a long time, and I missed artists. I missed being an artist. I missed working with artists.
That kind of brings us neatly to the next bit of this, which is that. So we kind of started thinking, you know, there's this thing that's also almost become a cliche in itself, which is like the cross section of art and tech that is like this holy grail that everyone keeps talking about, which I have really yet to see done well, really. And like as much as I've just made, you know, this big kind of really like a love letter to tech and technology and startups and like the original. When I think about Silicon Valley, I don't think about when I think about what's exciting about it. I definitely don't think about, you know, the massive like companies and all this, like, you know, they're all on private jets. I mean, what I love about it is the original kind of link to San Francisco hippie culture, counterculture idea of the original and the sort of 90s idea of what the internet could have been if they had, you know, which if you watch a documentary called Hypernormalizations, he's the same director did another one called, it's really incredible documentary, and it's called All Watched Over by Machines of Loving Grace, which talks about how it talks about how the this dream of the internet, which is connected to the American hippie counterculture dream, got completely bastardized by by the fact that we sort of fell asleep at the wheel and massive industries took it over and turned it into something evil, which, going back to VR, is slightly what people who are now, I've realized that how deep the VR industry goes, and how you've got people who are like beyond evangelical, like people who are religiously, like who are like, this is, not only is it going to change the world, and not only is this the most powerful medium that's ever existed, but it's actually in danger of falling into the wrong hands already. And it is arguably it is, because you look at the big players in immersive technology. You've got the Facebook acquisition of Oculus, so they have, you know, interestingly, by signing the I agree on Facebook, you're also agreeing to send them any data that they can get out of you while you're wearing a headset. If you looked at left, if you looked right, if you were more drawn to this, how long, like even down to when these headsets have got the new ones that can measure your eye, your iris, and how much you're blinking, and your heartbeat and your body temperature. Oh, the scary amount of data already.
Yeah, I mean, these companies are going to already know us better than we know ourselves.
Exactly.
And
so suddenly, from being someone who really, we were like, okay, we're putting together a record and how do we make something interesting, I suddenly realized that this is like the most exciting time to be an artist and to be creating something, because it's so rare an artist suddenly gets new tools, you know. Like you give someone a synth and a sampler and this, and you're like, you know, what can you do that was better than what Dre did? What can you do that was better than what Joy Division did? Really, like. But when those people came along, the Dre existed because the sampler and the MPC came along, and Joy Division came along because of changes in recording and synths and the way that music was distributed on an indie level. And so you kind of start feeling back, and I was like thinking, we were having conversations, we were thinking the history of music and the history of culture is just the history of technology, because you trace it back to whatever thing it was, whether if it's Hendrix, it's the Stratocaster, which is technology.
Yeah, well, it's always been that art tech thing, hasn't it? I mean, it's from the first cave paintings, that was a technology, realizing that you could like mash up certain herbs or charcoal or whatever, and then make these illustrations that transport you to another world, or a flickering fire,
absolutely
campfire
right.
that you.
I was reading something quite interesting about the Impressionists, and they were like, revolutionized painting, revolutionized the way we saw the world, change, like really, really incredibly important part of art, culture, and human history. And it's all because of, suddenly you could get oil paints, and that meant that you could suddenly go out and paint. You didn't need someone to mix powders, and then so suddenly the subject matter changed, and suddenly and because the subject matter changes, you feel like your role as an artist is to express what's happening now, and what's happening now is completely down to tech. Sorry, go on. I interrupted.
No. It's the medium creates a context and a framework for how you can express yourself. So now you have these new tools where you can immerse your audience, if you wanted to, with all their senses. Yeah. I'm really curious to know how this has impacted you as an artist, and maybe you could describe a little bit about, from the audience perspective, what you're doing from their perspective. So for people who are watching this, they can sort of get an image of that.
So the show is basically a look at what is now possible to do with all this technology, and the fact that I'm in New York at the moment, and we've been here for about 10 days, and we went to like VR World, which is like in the middle of Manhattan, and it's this huge.
Yeah, I went there a couple months ago.
Yeah, and they're building something next. Well, I don't understand. How many people are watching this?
Not many, but we record it and then publish it, so more people see it. But
it's great.
There's literally 3 or 6 people maybe who are seeing it.
Okay. People are sending interesting links to books.
Yeah, thank you, Greg.
Can I plug my phone in for a second, because I'm scared it's just gonna cut out at the right moment. Is that hugely unprofessional?
No. Are you doing this from your phone as well?
Yeah, you have a sip of your beer while I change this, and then then we both look about as unprofessional as each other. I've got a drink too.
Go for it. So while you're doing that, I'll talk about what I've been.
Can you still hear me
today. I can still hear you, not quite as well, but I can hear you.
Yeah, sorry. For a project that's based on audio, the fact that the audio is going to be this shit is disappointing. One sec.
So are you going to show us some links? Do you have some links that you can show us?
I have a ton of links which I can share as we go. One sec.
I'm realizing that this should have been a 2-beer interview. I'm almost done with my beer, and there's no beer anywhere near me right now.
Do we have an interval?
No. I've got a little baby that I need to get home for after this, so we're on a schedule.
Okay, well, in that case, I'll cut to the chase then, which is, so we've now evolved from a band that was experimenting with VR to a band that put together a show which was completely viewed in VR and AR, because the important thing about this is that it's not like it's sometimes I forget to explain to people, it's not, it's a live concert where you're just watching some VR while a band play, which obviously that would be incredibly dystopian and depressing. It's the whole point of it is it's VR that you go to a specific place, and it kind of crosses between the real and the virtual. So
cool.
You're 1 minute you're in the room in reality, and you're sitting next to the people that you're with, and it's a very real moment in a world where everything's virtual, where you're speaking with someone that you've never met via a tiny screen, and it's all bits and zeros and JPEGs and pixels. That it's a look at that with a switch into reality. And there's nothing, I kind of feel like there's nothing more real than being in a room with musicians who are going through a piece of music, because anything can change and it's different every time. So we then got a grant from the Dutch government to put on a 3-day version of this experience where we would do multiple sessions in the day of this it was very short at that time. It was like a 6-minute VR experience, but with live musicians, with like orchestral musicians.
So the audience is in VR and they're
That's right.
seeing what?
So you would walk through, you would arrive at a certain allotted time. You would go through this gallery that we've got projection mapping. We've got a history of how the project was made. We've got the small documentary pieces of how it's evolved, and voiceovers by some of the people that we met who are sort of who are kind of players in the history of this medium. So everyone from the early days of the sort of Damocles NASA era to even Brett Leonard, who was the director of Lawnmower Man. Like, because for us, it's like it's not just this sort of high culture thing. It's kind of connected to video games, and it's connected to something very disposable, you know. And if you've gone to VR world, you'll see that is like, you know, that's one way that's going to end up. Like, it's going to end up lots of kids who just want to play Fruit Ninja, you know, which is fine. And I think that the danger is that you can get really like snobbish about it and say, no, this is meant to be the next internet and we've got to make sure. And I think that in a way is at odds with what's incredible about it as tech, is that it's being built by everybody. Like, you know, like the internet is. It's like a global art piece that we're all adding, we're all manipulating.
We're still in the lobby. I'm seeing projection maps. What happens next?
So you go through the lobby and you sit down after you've been led by these ushers, and you sit down, and there's, on the earliest iterations of the show, there's 15 people, and we do it every hour. And they sit down and they get given headsets. And the really important thing about this, and going back to VR world, the way VR is shown is so crap. Like, I'm going to stop being as polite as I have been, seeing as we're running short time. so like, it's so lame. Like, it's meant to be the most incredible medium of all time. Why am I in a queue waiting for a guy with a laminate to put a sweaty headset on me so I can do a 2-minute Beat Saber while other people in the queue take pictures and laugh, you know? That's not what VR should be. It should be the ultimate rock and roll show, the fucking next Kubrick moment, the first David Bowie show that ever happened. And it should be all these things all blended into one. And so they sit down and they get given headsets. And the whole room is full of smoke. There's tones of music. There's a voiceover of an actor that we got who's in Skyrim and Fallout.
Do they have headphones on, or is the audio
all the audio is made live.
Okay, and it's coming out of speakers, and I'm hearing it, or do I have headphones on?
Very loud speakers in a room full of smoke. Okay. So right in front of you, there's a drum kit, synth, everything, but no musicians. You are waiting. And the important thing about this is because what we found is people are already weirded out by this strange tech of this like idea of, you know, you go somewhere and someone puts a black box recorder on your face and then puts headphones on you and then hands you some things, and you're in, you know, it's an awkward, weird thing for a lot of people. A lot of people don't want that, you know, and they find it nauseating. So the more things you do to make it a familiar setting for a performance, the better. So when we did it in a cinema, it was actually one of the best ones we ever did because everyone was used to it. You sit down, some stuff's going to happen, the curtain's open, show me the medium. So this is a standard thing. You're used to going there, you sit down, you know your role. And, you know, I don't want to go into like too much of the philosophical aspects of it, but Brecht talks about this fourth wall thing, you know, and everyone keeps saying, breaking the fourth wall, this and that. But there's a really interesting, simple thing about that, which is that you have a role as the audience member, just as in a game you have a role as the player, and you have certain expectations, and there's a certain psychology that evolves about knowing, okay, I'm the player, this is my role, I'm that guy, here's my health bar, here's this. And the same in a movie. Oh, it's an establishing shot of Brooklyn. Okay, we're in Brooklyn. Okay, it's a close-up of a guy's hands and he's awkward. Okay, you know, but all that stuff is a language, and it took years to evolve, decades to evolve. And the same with VR. That's why there's so much crap VR, because we're at the like Lumiere brothers of it. No one knows what to do with it. Yeah. And they'll like fire some pixels at you. They'll make you climb a mountain. They'll put you on a roller coaster, and you'll take it off, and you'll be like, all right, well, that was great. What am I going to do next? You know, yeah.
And what are you doing with it? You're so far we're still waiting for the band to come out. You've got the headset on.
Can you tell that one of our main tools is expectation and anticipation? Anyway, so you're in VR, and here's the key thing: it's through a pass-through camera. So the very early days we had to like hack very crap equipment.
Oh, interesting. So is it like AR then, or like are you
Yeah,
getting
it's a
any visuals, or
pass-through
literally do
camera
you
event.
just have a headset on and you're
You have a
just seeing
headset
what you
on,
normally
but
see?
you can see this is you can go headset on, but you can see reality. And this is the thing that's hilarious: is we spent all this time rendering lakes and caves and all this stuff, which you're about to see in the show, by the way. So,
Okay.
and about half the people are more blown away by looking at their own hands with a filter on. But it's just, we're meant to entertain them. Like, they are the audience. Like, and then
Yeah.
I think that's a kind of a modern thing, that the audience are actually more important now. There's the age of the rock star, the age of the superstar rapper, that's dead. Like, that's why social media is such a powerful thing. You want to relate to things, you want to be in control, you want to interact, which is why VR could be so powerful. So, as you're in pass-through camera, the band come on, and you watch these figures come on stage. So you're familiar with this. I'm an audience, the band start, it's about stuff. And what's interesting is all these things that, or like Google or whatever, these huge companies, Epic Games, spend millions on to make someone feel immersed. Actually, you put some people in a room and you let them know that something's going to happen, they're already slightly tripped out, and they know that. And almost most of the work is being done in the audience's mind to immerse themselves, to let go, because it's just about detachment. That's why we watch films. That's why you read books. You want to escape. So anyway, for the people who will understand want to know about the sort of technical side of it, what's actually happening is we have these 15 headsets that are in a multiplayer lobby. So, like in Halo or whatever, they are all players in a game that's happening on a server that's behind one of the people in the band, and the guy is shifting everyone's headset at the same time, simultaneously, between different worlds and different scenes.
Got it.
Including our world and this world. So
one of those worlds is the pass-through one, and the other ones are
it's quite a
crazy
simple
rendered
concept
ones.
when you think about it. It's like, okay, so it's just like a VJ. He's just flipping through these things. But what really becomes interesting is that we start to interpret these songs as, well, let's put the people in the world that's being described in these songs and in this music. And the music itself and the album itself obviously is written. As soon as we started this, as soon as we had the first prototype, we just scrapped everything we'd written, and we had to write about this because it didn't make sense anymore. You start flying through a low polygon lake, and then you come back in the room and you can see your girlfriend as a cloud of pixels. Suddenly, the song that was about going to Paris for a week, it doesn't make any sense. It should all be about VR and about disembodiment and about avatars and about all these incredible concepts that VR can do so well. That, like, I heard a really interesting talk where it was about the number of complex philosophical questions you make a 9-year-old ask when they put a headset on, that they totally understand, probably better than a person in their late 40s, which is the sense of self, like embodiment, time and space, all these mad complex things that when you put on a VR headset, you are actually being asked a question, like that if you say, okay, well, I took that off, so this is reality, and that wasn't, and then you're like, well, I mean, to what degree is that reality? Well, it isn't. We won't. It's an end. There's not enough time to go down all those rabbit holes. But the first shows were like that we were like, it's just this complex art piece where we're just doing this stuff, and we're like, and then we started having people come and say, how do I invest in the startup? And we were like, at first we were like slightly arrogant. It was like, listen, this is all about this is all about trying. We don't want to be a start. Like, we can see what's happening in the tech space. Like, it's all going. It's like around the sort of Cambridge Analytica time. It was like, this is the opposite. Like, we want to just be this ragtag group of artists that are taking this project. And then we started realizing how much making VR costs, and that actually
it's one of the most expensive mediums.
Oh my god, yeah. And to even test it out is a nightmare. Everything about it at the moment is very difficult to produce. It's getting easier, and you have things like Unity, and which is, again, like, it's a low barrier of entry. Like, 10-15 years ago, if you wanted to.
Were you going to show us links, by the way? I don't want to lose. I want to stay in the realm that you just painted verbally, before we move on.
Can I put them at the end? Because I'm
okay.
afraid that if I do this, I'll just like shut
fuck it up. All right.
So anyway, so we started putting on these events that would be a day of us playing to these sessions of people.
How many would you get through in a day? So it was 15 people for how long?
I mean, in the beginning of this project, about sort of 2 years ago, we were doing like 2 every hour, and moved to 15 people. And what was interesting is that, and at the end I'll add links to sort of Vox Pop and audience accounts of it. What was really interesting is that people started to interpret in all different ways, and you get different crowds, which from the point of view of musicians, that's exactly what you want, because you're so pigeonholed. Oh, are you like electronic? Are you this? Are you that? Then what kind of demographic? What age group? What was amazing about this is like it's technologies. Everyone has a relationship with technology. So as soon as you're talking about that, like you could have, we have people who were like the art and culture correspondent for the BBC who reviews like operas. He came because he was like, well, this is an idea of what the role of the audience is changing, and this is the technology. And then people from like VR Scout, and VR Voice, and Kent Bai, who if you are interested in anything to do with VR, there's a podcast by a guy called Kent Bai, and
he lives here in Portland with me. He's a buddy.
Yeah, right. He is. Yeah, he is. It's impossible to really explain how central he is to VR as a scene. But through him, actually, we learned and met so many people. The irony of it is that you can kind of pay for big courses and do all this stuff, but it's such a strange, bubbling scene that you can just listen to a guy's podcast and he just knows everybody and learns everything and then explains these things brilliantly. And
he's a fascinating guy and such a...
Oh, I think we lost you.
Such a trip. Such a trip.
He's amazing. And I kind of, do you know what, like, coming from someone who comes from the UK, that there is a fascination with all these different types of American tech culture because it's so central to what the world we're living in. And he does, for me, represent like the original, like, purest idea of what it could be. Like, and it's the right balance of like, because if you go too far one end, it's just corporate, like, hustle and let's make millions of dollars. And then if you go too far the other end, it does get a bit Burning Man, and it gets a bit like, let's just cover ourselves in tinfoil and be unicorns in VR. And somewhere, and perfectly in the middle is Kent Bai. Like 1 minute able to talk about really complex high level stuff about like, how this is going to help with medicine and education and be this incredible medium that could change the world, that could liberate us, that could be fascinating, the most powerful human tool of all time. But then he's also able to, there's a really amazing one where he interviews the guy from Oculus and like completely does basically raises all the difficult questions that Oculus don't want to answer. And or write a podcast like about privacy, about all this kind of stuff. And no one has the guts to do that. And suddenly, also the other thing is Kent has become incredibly influential from a guy who just was like taking a little microphone to trade shows and to this weird scene that was evolving. But anyway, so to conclude the stuff about what's happening with the project, since then we've grown and we realized that to make it, as soon as you get into technology and game design and interface design, you can't just be, we're just like 10 people who are putting this. You need to grow. And like, again, switching to the sort of more philosophical stance of it, that's why this is such a powerful medium, because it's Truffaut, actually, French filmmakers would talk about how film is the most pure art form because you need so many people to make it. So it's actually a more honest form of human expression because it's not one guy with a paintbrush or one girl with a camera. It's like you have to have a conversation, you have to work together, and it's actually, you create a picture of who we are and what humanity is because so many people have had their thumbprints on it. And VR goes even one step further. Video game design. We had a meeting while we were here with Rockstar Games about a week ago, and that is like, in some ways, that's as a piece of medium, as a piece of art. And I'm sure lots of people will argue with. We'll get into our video games art debate, but as a piece of art, it is the most consumed and most successful piece of art in all human history. Like it outsold Thriller on the second day. It like more people saw it than saw Star Wars like 20 times over, and that's video games. And that was made.
Are we talking about Red Dead Redemption or which Rockstar game?
Sorry.
Oh, yeah,
and,
sure.
And it's like, again, a cultural phenomenon, but it was made by thousands and thousands of people. Like, there's a gut.
Which is the weird thing. I mean, if you think about like, it's funny you said pure because I feel like it's the hardest medium to stay pure because there's so many people. The more people that you have, the more opportunities you have for a vision to get muddied down. And
I guess my understanding of it, or my approach to it, is that is that it's almost arrogant for someone to be the auteur and say this is what humanity.
Super arrogant.
And but like if you have a Kubrick, it's no one should argue with what Kubrick's vision was. They should have just made the bloody film in the man's head because it was great. However, if we're talking about honest human expression, that if you really want to know what was happening on Earth in 2016 or whenever GTA 5 was on, arguably you will be able to analyze GTA 5 for centuries as a perfect example, capsule of what it was, culturally, musically, and the fact that as a medium, it needs someone who's an architect, someone who understands physics, someone who's an actor, someone who's so in a way it becomes total art. So that's all I'm saying.
Well, that's the part that is so exciting about that massively collaborative thing, is that nobody is smart enough to house all of that in one brain.
Exactly.
Right? And that's the thrill, is to work with people that have skill sets that you don't have, but you can add a piece to the puzzle. Which is,
and you could argue that is a metaphor for what society is now, because we used to have this newspaper and we all believe what that newspaper is. We used to have that, and then obviously social media, which is something that's complex and can be pushed in really dark ways, but it is still like you could look at Wikipedia and say no one person wrote Wikipedia. So in some ways, it's a more honest encyclopedia than like the Encyclopedia Britannia or
of course,
with cultural bias or whatever, Anyway, so I feel like I have hit you with some serious tangents.
Well, they're super engaging and really interesting. Still curious, what are you doing next? Like, where's this project going? Like, so, I know you're doing a tour coming up, and I wanna see this. I have a pretty good idea of what you did before. Paint me a picture of what this has morphed into, and what this new tour is going to be, and where you're going as an artist.
What it's morphed into is a startup, because the other thing is like, people who are in music industry, like it was a band, and then they were like, I thought, well, kind of that's a slightly dated way of creating things. And I look at people who work on apps and games and stuff, and they're making incredible things, and the world is changing every day, and they are saying something really important and exciting that's relevant. And so we were like, well, we can be a startup too, because we've got coders, we've got designers, we're making an app. It's going to be available on Steam. We're just as good. What's
the app going to be called? MirrorShot?
It's going to be MirrorShot. It's called Content, and the reason it's called Content is because by being part of it, instead of having fans, we wanted to have collaborators. So instead of it being like, there's a really amazing David Bowie interview actually with Jeremy Paxman in 1999, which is
I think I've seen that one.
Yeah,
he's talking about like the internet stuff, right?
Exactly, and he talks about the way that we have the evolution of the role of the audience and the artist is something that's totally been shifting over time, from the fact that you get like blues, where instead of it being like, oh, only the rich people can make orchestral music, it's like, no, give that guy in Delta a guitar and 3 chords and he can say something really important. So then you get to like punk, which is like you don't even need 3 chords, maybe 2. Then it gets to like sampling and synthesizers, which is like you don't even need to know how to play a guitar. In fact, you don't even know anything. And then you get to like to rave culture, which is like the guy even playing the music is like one of the least important parts of the rave. Like it's your experience. It's he's DJing, he's soundtracking, like, and the idea is, and then you get to social media and you realize that like what's interesting for me is I signed my first record deal when after the whole like golden era. Like as soon as I signed, it was just full of miserable old, mostly white male guys saying, "Oh, it used to be so much better. Oh, you should have seen it. You see, we used to get a private jet to there and do this, bro." And I actually remember thinking, this is so much more exciting now. Like, what everything's shifting. Like, everything's changed. It's another punk moment, or it's another, it's a real pivot in music history. And the project evolved in the sense of us going, well, why we don't want to be it's a central thing. Like, what? It's in a way, it's a band that everybody can join, because it's stronger by people who have joined the collective contributing stuff. And all the music videos are done like that, and all the app itself is done like that, but it's a collaborative effort. And we provide resources for artists so that they can learn how to do it, and tutorials, and we've got people from, like, there's like a 16-year-old kid in Virginia who's a drone videographer who submitted some stuff for the video. There's a guy in Argentina who makes weird light sculptures. That was one of those videos. But and this goes back to what we talked about before about it being this ultimate VR being this ultimate collaborative platform, is that a VR experience can have an unlimited number of people collaborating on it. And I actually feel like that it's better for it, that like when you fly through a street scene, that I know that this lamppost over there was made by this Swedish girl who has just been using Unity for like 2 weeks and did a tutorial on lampposts. And in a strange way, because it grows all the time and because it changes, and even like we did a show in Hamburg and we did 4 days, and by the fourth day, people had even submitted their own stuff. And I
love that.
And
the world, like in terms of the description you gave before, you're like the experience of these live shows is still going through these different worlds, but you're saying that the audience is a part of collaborating and building those worlds. Is that
there's a user generated content is the kind of boring word for it, but it's like that's the idea that you don't. And I think it kind of, when you're looking at social media now and the way that all the things that are wrong, the dark stuff that it kind of pushes, which is that you scroll through some stuff and everyone is like hashtag living their best life, and it's like, here's this like rock star with a better house than you, and here's this girl who has like, you know, more attractive than this girl, and here's that actually creating a project where you said, see how amazing this is and see how exciting it is, but actually you could be part of it and you should be part of it because your ideas are just as good as our ideas, and actually our overall idea is better for your contribution. And the interesting thing about that is it's like it's sort of at odds with the idea of fan culture, that you know, that you go buy a t-shirt, do this, listen to the set, do that.
Very one directional.
So
it sounds like what you're really doing is creating a community, right? I mean, that's
there's the
vibe I'm getting.
Basically, that you can go to www.mirrorshot.com and you can sign up, and it basically means you can be part and contribute to this. And it means we have these resources, and when we got a grant, we were able to put out, you know, obviously it's something that we want to try and grow organically rather than just like push it.
And like, so you've got an app that you're releasing that's going to be for which headset, and when is that coming out, and where are you going for your next shows? Like, how can I want to see all of this? Like,
great, you should join.
So the best way to engage is through the website.
The best way, because we only went live about 4 months ago. All the other shows that we did, like the one that we got the grant from the Dutch government, the Amsterdam show, the France, Germany, and London stuff, has been in a kind of a pre-launch stage because we had to test out. This is the thing. It was a kind of that we learned very early on that it takes a lot of testing, and like we were working with game developers who are like, you are doing something like suicidal if you are. It's scary enough putting on Steam. It's a beta, it's a closed beta, this and that and the other. People still hate it because something goes wrong. And so imagine doing that, and imagine that you're in a live situation. So there are people who've come in and they're sitting down and they're like playing me a thing. They've given up their time. They want to watch something incredible, and like a headset just glitches and someone is it's bad enough when you're on a screen clicking and something goes wrong. If you're in a VR experience, something goes wrong, you are in a world of misery because it's just darkness or glitch or, you know, some nightmarish thing happens. So we had to test it extensively. And we had to, the idea is that we've made the idea behind the startup is, obviously, as soon as we did this, we had other people going, cool, so could you do one for a film that's going to come out? We had the National Opera come up to us and go, could you do like an adaptation of The Ring? Could you do like the Royal Shakespeare Association? Could you do Macbeth? And with all these things, it's like, that is a dauntingly huge thing because it's scalable. Like, there's nothing to stop us having 600 people in it. But also, the reason booking agents, for instance, are excited by this as a direction is because, well, technically you've got the peak experience. So we would come to where are you at the moment? So you're in Portland.
Yep.
Yeah, and we play a show in Portland, and there are people who bought those tickets. But also, on the app, there's a virtual version of it where no matter where you you could ghost. It's called that show, and you can be cool. Which, if you look at what's happening in music, it's strange how the music industry picks up on just like very basic things that can be easily put in like Music Weekly, which is like the big one was the in Fortnite.
Fortnite, yeah.
There was what's his name, Marshmello, who did. Played a DJ set, and there was something like 11 million people turned up, and so suddenly this
that's a big concert.
It was, I mean, yeah, it's kind of if you could kind of like hold back the laughter a bit when you look at how kind of daft it looks. That's the biggest single like gig in human history. And it's people who are like playing a game that all the parents are like, oh, he's playing this stupid game, she's playing this daft game. And it's this kind of, I mean, I apologize for any Marshmello fans in the room, but you know, like pretty bland EDM. Like pretty like lowest common denominator, slightly dated, like house electronic music. And yet it was like, it was, you know, it's like, what is that, like 700 Woodstocks? Or something like that.
At least, yeah. That's
So, yeah. But going back to the first point, it's something that people haven't got right. And that's something I should also say, is that I'm not saying that we've got it right. I just think that the reactions have been really interesting, and it feels like it's because it's a new medium. Anyone who's on this who is a game designer or a game developer, that's why people are drawn to it, because the rules aren't in place yet. And it's the most exciting time to be doing it, because in like 10 years, there'll be like Rockstar Games of VR. There'll be, like, I was listening to a Danny in the Valley, a really great podcast, and he's, I think, called The Pivot. And he talks about like the first social media, like Bebo, for instance, and the fact that everyone knew, and there was a .com, everyone knew, it wasn't even called social media then, but everyone knew that it was logical that this thing is going to mean this many people, and you start to see people's reaction, that this many people are going to be needing to connect and wanting to connect. And that was before we even had mobiles, and it was already nuts, and it was already exploding, but no one knew. And you know, it was Bebo, Facebook and MySpace and Friendster, and like, you know, all the things that you think are going to be huge, something they get wrong means someone else comes up with the perfect way of doing it. And now who's on Friendster and MySpace now, you know? And there was a time where they were the thing. So I think it's the same with VR, that all the things we think are going to be runaway successes and huge, and like even the way we're going about it with, it'll be the next game. It'll be, everyone will have a VR headset in their home. Like, I don't think it'll be like that. I don't think we can even really predict it.
Yeah, it's, I mean, the future is getting so crazy. I think it's beyond any predictions. But so you're going to do a tour in the US, you mentioned over email to me.
Yeah,
when and what cities? And you already do it. So when's your next show? Where can I come to see?
We're in New York now, and we just spoke today. We went to the R Lab, which is this the massive and incredible space.
What do you think?
Do you know what's amazing is today we did R Lab in the morning, and then we went to VR World, and it was those polar opposites I was talking about. It was because the guys who run R Lab are like, and it's for people who don't know, it's funded by the government. It's like an amazing initiative, and it's obviously it's run by people who are real like evangelists about it as a medium, and they are like super bright people who are from NYU, and it's designed to basically to give to teach people about this new medium, and they don't know. This is, again, like, because it's the Wild West, no one really knows, like, how's it going to work. And obviously I'm biased towards the idea of it.
So you're going to do a show at R Lab? Where's your show?
Well, R Labs have got an enormous space. We're looking for spaces.
You're a very hard person to nail down. I love it.
I'm so sorry. If you join the mailing list, I'll keep you super informed. Sorry, no. To be super clear, then we have a show that's booked in the Wisdom in Los Angeles for October.
Oh yeah, that just got on my radar like a couple weeks ago.
But the issue, and this is the thing about being
and Greg was there last week. Yeah, I haven't been there personally, but someone.
I've just seen it in
What did you think, Greg? Did you like it?
Greg, is it any good? Should we go?
Super rad.
That's exactly the kind of review you want.
So you're going to be, what day are you playing there? Because I might be able to hop on a plane and come down.
Oh, you should definitely do it. I'm gonna send you all the details at the end of this. Because
great.
My classic mistake is getting all the dates wrong. Okay. But
when we post these videos afterwards, I'll make sure to include.
And if you go to our Facebook, if you go to Mirror Shop on Facebook or on Instagram or on Twitter, we regularly do make sure that it's all fully informed about everything. But in answer to your question about, or in response to your accusations of me being elusive, the thing about tech is, like, with music, they go, there's the album, you're going on tour, here's the thing, release dates, get that out for festival season. It's all very a linear path. And what's
Yeah.
exciting and also incredibly frustrating when I'm trying to be as clear as possible to someone like you is that it changes every like 3 weeks. We like suddenly like we got an offer for a show in Singapore, and there's an enormous
Oh, wow.
grant, which would mean we would be able to pay for everyone's visas, everyone's flights, everything. We would be able to do something incredible, and so the whole timetable shifts again. And then and then we speak to HTC, for instance, and HTC say, "Oh, we absolutely love this project," and the whole and they're like, "We'll give you the headsets, we'll provide you with this." So our projections of what the cost was and how long it would take are suddenly halved. And I think that that's something that's very familiar to anyone who's worked in the tech industry.
Yeah.
Is that suddenly an investor comes along and you go, "Oh, okay, we're going to move to a big office and we'll get 500 people working on this," instead of just being in someone's mum's garage and being 3 of us on a broken laptop. So
yeah, things can blossom quickly.
Yeah.
But man, I'm really excited about the show in LA, and
yeah.
I'm really glad that we got to talk. You're
Yes.
a fascinating person, and I love the whole kaleidoscopic array of topics we've covered. And you said you had a bunch of links that you wanted to share at the end. Do you want to
I'll
just
paste
throw
the link
them
to the
in the chat log? Is that the best way to do that?
whatever you guys prefer. Yeah, I can put them in the chat log.
Either that, or you do a screen share, and we could watch whatever you got. That might be fun.
Okay.
Do you want to do that?
Yeah, sure.
Let's see if it blows up.
Okay, so which one's the screen share?
There's oh god, I don't know. I'm on my phone, so I can't
Yeah, I'm doing it
walk
from
you
my
through
phone
it.
as well, which is slightly.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Oh, that's so funny. We're both doing it.
This, they're all
I don't think you can.
that will explain everything.
Yeah, do that.
You know what? I can just do this, which would be the website.
Are you gonna point your phone at your laptop or something?
I'm gonna point it at the ceiling awkwardly while I type in. I'm afraid. So apologies for anyone getting nauseous. This isn't what the show is like, by the way. It's very like cleverly paced and cinematic. But yeah, this if you put that in, then that should explain what it is, and you can join, and you can either be part of it, or if you can send us lots of unsolicited advice about where VR should go, which is what a lot of people want you to do.
Love it.
But yeah, really great to meet you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, likewise, man. And I've got to go put my kid to sleep and do dinner and bath and everything with him, or else I'd probably chat you up a little longer because there's so many questions I have. But I think the best way, is to just check out your shit in person. So we should all fly to LA and see you at the Wisdom at some unspecified date that your Facebook page knows, but you don't. And we've got another one of these tomorrow morning. We do these for people in Asia at 5 p.m. It's a different time. So it's always at 9 a.m. besides Thursdays, which is at 5 p.m. So tomorrow at 9 a.m. we'll be talking to Bracy, who worked on a very cool project that premiered at Tribeca this year. So see you in a few hours. And Roman, a real pleasure to meet you. I look forward to meeting you in Meetspace.
We'll save you a guest list space then for the show.
Oh, please do. Please do.
Thank you very much. And see you later, Greg.
And yeah, thank you, Greg. You've been amazing. You made me feel like I wasn't totally alone while I waited for Roman to figure out how his phone worked.
All right. Cool.
All right.
Take care, guys.
See you guys. Bye.